Hey guys, it's Will here, and I'm back with another 40k Batrep, second one this month. Things are getting back on track. So I've got my Necrons again, and this time I'm facing off against Tom and his mixed Tzeentch Chaos army. So it should be quite an interesting game. I don't think Tom's ever beaten me on camera before, but he's really been playing a lot more the last few months and really getting his tactics down. Got some nasty tricks in this Tzeentch list. My Necrons have been upgraded a little bit from my last game, taking on board some of the things I learned in that game, so it should make for a nice interesting battle. The board tonight is down here at 40k Gaming, and we're using this Hab block terrain. This is produced by Mad Gaming Terrain, and I will put a link in the description to their website so you can check out the stuff they do. It's a nice sort of modular city type terrain, looks pretty cool. Not quite sure what mission we're going to do yet, still need to discuss that with Tom, but it's going to be 2,000 points. Let's take a look at the armies. So here's my 2,000 point Necron army. This has been updated a bit from my last game, taking on board what advice I could take on board from you guys. I know there was a lot of things I could have done with this list, but some of it was limited by what I actually had in my collection and how long I had to paint stuff. So yeah, certainly not there yet, but we're getting there, and it should be a little bit of a better showing than last time. Plus I got 2 extra command points thanks to the new FAQ. So starting down here, we got my Warlord. So this is my Overlord, and he's got a Resurrection Orb and the oh, what's that thing called, a War Scythe, and he's also got the Veil of Darkness to give him and a squad near him the ability to pick up and deep strike. Then I've got a Cryptek, using a different model this time because the one I had in the last game got broken. I haven't had a chance to fix him yet, and he's just ordinary Cryptek with a Staff of Light and a Chronometron. Then for my troops, I got the same 2 big warrior units, one of 19 and one of 20, and then a unit of 10 Tesla Immortals. And I got my destroyers. I was a little underwhelmed with their performance in the first game, but I think that was just because they died before they had a chance to make an impact. From what I've heard, they are still really good, so definitely want to see how they do. And then I've got some other fast stuff down here. Got my Wraiths and my Tomb Blades. Tomb Blades are running shield veins, and also the Gauss Blasters on there. Incidentally, these are the old Wraith models because I've had these since these were the current Wraith models. And then the 2 new units I brought along, the Triarch Stalker, to try and give me a little bit of extra anti-tank. It's not as much as I'd like, but you know, the heat ray on there might come in handy. And then I've got the Annihilation Barge, twin Tesla on there, Gauss underneath, should give me some nice extra firepower. As for my Warlord trait, I've gone for Immortal Pride, because really kind of need the boosts to leadership tests, because having these big blobs run away or have to burn 2 whole command points to stop them running away just isn't good. Plus that will give me a potential to deny the Witch against those nasty Tzeentch psychic powers. But there we go, 2,000 points of Necrons. And here we've got Tom's Tzeentch army. So this is a really nice looking army. A couple of models still need finishing, but it's a beautiful little army he's got here. So starting off with, he's got a 1,000 Suns Supreme Command detachment. So we have 3 Exalted Sorcerers and Ahriman. And Ahriman has the 3+ Invuln Save Warlord trait, and this guy here has the relic that gives them. This guy here has the relic that gives them the Seer's Bane. Yeah, so that's all good. And then in the elite slot there, they have the Scarab Occult Terminators, looking very nice, and Magnus the Red as his Lord of War. It's Ahriman who is going to be the Warlord, though, not Magnus, which seems wrong, but tactically it makes sense, even if fluff-wise it doesn't. Then he's got a Tzeentch, not Tzeentch Demons, but just Tzeentch battalion. So he's got this third-party Abaddon model tucked under there, leading that, and the Changeling for his second HQ. He's got the Burning Chariot of Tzeentch. Nice unit of very, very bright Screamers of Tzeentch, and then 3 units of Brimstone Horrors for his minimum troops. and that is 2,000 points of Tzeentch. Okay, so for tonight's mission we've rolled up Target of Opportunity. So same mission as I did in my last Batrep, hoping to have a bit of a better result. And we're hammering anvil deployment tonight, which is always a bit of a squeeze with a list like this, trying to get them all in. But it's alright, we finished deploying first, and as you can see, I've got the majority of my infantry with my characters there, and faster stuff on the flanks. The majority of the Tzeentch forces, particularly characters, are clustered over that side, so we've got Magnus and the sorcerers. One thing I didn't mention in deployment was that the sorcerers are all on discs of Tzeentch. Even if they're not modelled with them, they've all been paid for with them, so they're going to be pretty fast moving. He's got his brimstone horrors in the back here to try and grab objectives as and when required. Might be a little bit of a long 2 inches there, but we'll measure that in a minute. And then in reserve he's got Abaddon and the Terminators. This will be our first mission, or certainly my first mission, using the new FAQ. So we've got a few extra command points to play with. But yeah, without further ado, let's roll off for first turn. And even with the +1 I don't win, but I am going to try and seize the initiative. Nope, initiative not stolen. Chaos, turn 1 coming up. So, as expected, Magnus started by hurling himself and the Tzeentch Screamers forward. His objectives this turn were Scour the Skies, Mission Critical Objective on Objective 5, which was over there, and Defend 4, which is over there by the Tomb Blades. So yeah, he went forward and cast a confusing array of psychic powers, but the upshot of it is Magnus now has a 3+ invuln, is -1 to hit, and got a second move from warp time. He also threw out some psychic powers to reduce the warrior unit down to just 9 warriors. Because they're psychic powers, my chronometron doesn't help, so yeah, that was not ideal. Flaming Chariot managed to kill off or do 1 wound to the Stalker, but it was that big warrior unit that took the worst of it. He did also kill 3 Immortals because he got off Infernal Gateway, which also put a few wounds on the Annihilation Barge. Magnus and the Screamers charged the barge and the warriors. Got an 11-inch charge range, so that was, yeah, a long way to go. But I was a little bit clever. He attacked with the Screamers first, and I removed the models that were in contact with Magnus, meaning Magnus couldn't finish off the warriors, so they will get to reanimate next turn. Magnus smacked the Annihilation Barge down in utter rage at not being able to kill the warriors, and as you can see, Annihilation Barge is gone, which gets him first blood and Scour the Skies, giving him 3 points with the score objective 5 over there. So not a bad little opener there. Magnus did take a couple of wounds on Overwatch, and the Screamers lost a couple of guys actually to the return attacks from the warriors. He just had a complete woof on his saves, rolled 4 1s. So lost a few Screamers, but they held. And yeah, Magnus wasn't able to consolidate down here because it was just over 3 inches, and the Screamers weren't able to consolidate because the warriors didn't die. So yeah, hard turn there, but we just about managed to live it, and I get to roll some reanimations. So my objectives this turn were Endless Legion, which was going to be pretty easy to score with all those reanimates to make. Mission Critical Objective for Objective 5, which wasn't going to happen because that's over in the back lines, guarded by a load of demons. And Domination, which certainly wasn't going to happen. So what we did was basically focus on Magnus. So I brought my Stalker around to get a good shot on, and kept everyone else around, kind of pulled back so he couldn't hurt everybody at once. But the main thing there was I didn't pop my Veil of Darkness. I considered it, but decided no, need everyone down there. Overlord put my Will Be Done on the Immortals to counteract the -1 to hit that they were at for shooting Magnus, and the Triarch Stalker opened up the shooting, targeting Magnus to give everybody else reroll 1s to hit, which was going to be pretty essential for overthrowing this guy. Also moved my Wraiths up down the side here. resurrections were kind to me. I did score Endless Legion, brought back like 15 of the warriors or something close to that, and an immortal. And then shooting at Magnus. The warriors didn't have a great time, and the immortals did a bit better, put a few wounds on him, thanks to my using the Mefrit stratagem Talent for Destruction, I think it's called, or Talent for Devastation, something like that. Did a fair few wounds to him. That 3-up invuln is nasty to get through, but the destroyers were the stars of the show. Did about 9 wounds to him with their Gauss cannons, a really nasty weapon, especially as I used a command point there for their specific stratagem, giving them reroll all hits and wounds. And yeah, in the end, Magnus was left alive, but only just. He's got 4 wounds left. Other than that, brought the Wraiths around here, and they managed to pull off a 9-inch charge on the Flaming Chariot, wrecking that. So, in the end, we got just the 1 point that turn for Endless Legion. The other 2 are definitely going to go. But yeah, haven't really killed Magnus, but hopefully he's degraded enough that he's not going to be as much of a threat. But we shall see as we head into the second Chaos turn, and I'm fully expecting Abaddon and the Terminators to turn up. So another brutal magical onslaught from the forces of Tzeentch. The first thing you'll notice, obviously, is the Terminators have come down here and Abaddon's over there. And then Magnus flew over to where the destroyers were, and both of the unpainted sorcerers came over here by the Wraiths. And Ahriman's obviously come up as well. In the psychic phase, which is where the main thing happens, Ahriman healed 3 wounds on Magnus, and Magnus put his 3-up invuln back up. And I think he's -1 to hit, if I remember rightly. And one of the sorcerers put Death Hex on the Wraiths, so they were not getting their invuln, which is massive on Wraiths. So that was pretty scary. And then he blew up a whole load of my warriors with various spells and a couple of the destroyers. It was all a bit of a confusing muddle of magic. Shooting phase was completely nothing, and then in the assault phase it felt like everyone charged something different. So Changeling joined in with this little fight here. Ahriman charged the warriors, but took a couple of wounds on the way in, if I remember rightly. Oh no, he perils, that's right, he lost 3 wounds to perils earlier in the turn. And Magnus charged the destroyers, took 3 wounds on the way in, so he's back down to just 2 wounds. And the sorcerers charged the Wraiths. Both the newly arrived units failed their charges, but this other sorcerer was able to get into combat with my lord. So Magnus went first and wiped out the destroyers, which is a real shame because they're such a good unit, but they're just so priority target for my opponents. So I used 2 command points to interrupt with the Wraiths, which allowed me to kill the sorcerer who had the really nasty relic weapon. The other one was still able to kill 2 more of my Wraiths, and they'd lost a couple to smite earlier in the turn, but it was definitely the right thing to do to interrupt because they're actually alive. And then some of the other charges didn't quite go as planned. His sorcerer only did 2 wounds to my overlord for 2 wounds in return. Over here, the Screamers did cut down a lot more of my warriors, and Ahriman killed a few there. Ahriman took another wound. He's on his last wound now, but he wasn't able to actually wipe anything out, but he's just locking me down really well with a lot of these things. Points wise, he doesn't actually score anything. He's got Defend 1, which is down here, but his other objectives were Big Game Hunter and Psychic Supremacy, which he obviously wasn't going to get because that involves denying the Witch. So all in all, very brutal, but not particularly high scoring, and I should still have something to come back at him with as we go into the second Necron turn. So in theory, this turn's objectives should have been pretty achievable: behind enemy lines, scour the skies, and area denial. To try and get me area denial, I pushed up my Stalker to target the one sorcerer holding the middle ground, and to help me get behind enemy lines, I spent 2 command points to try and resurrect some extra Wraiths, which I did. And 4 of them came over here and charged these Brimstone Horrors, killed 7 of them and lost another one to Overwatch. Unfortunately didn't stop him getting Defend 1, so he got another 2 points, bringing him up to 6, but I did at least get the 1 point for that. The Stalker didn't have so much luck though, shot the guy but saved it on his invuln, and then, did a wound to him, but didn't quite do enough damage to kill him. Then charged him and failed to do any damage in a desperate attempt to finish him off. The Tomb Blades were my one non-engaged unit over here that actually had some decent shooting, so they flew over to get Magnus, but unfortunately he passed all bar one of his saves, so he's left on 1 wound, and a decent amount of resurrections here ultimately amounted to nothing. Immortals couldn't shoot because they'd stepped out of combat. The other 2 units were locked down. I was hoping the unit there might kill Ahriman, take off his last wound. Almost did, but he used a command point to reroll his last save and just kept him alive. So in the end, I only got behind enemy lines. But that is the 2nd point, so that's alright. And as we head into the 3rd Tzeentch turn, though, I think I'm just, been outplayed here. So Tom's objectives this turn were Kingslayer, Ritual Slaughter, and no prisoners, all of which were going to be very doable. So Magnus came over here to join in the fight with Ahriman. The Terminators pushed up to get a little bit closer to their target, and Abaddon ran over to where the Tomb Blades were. And over here things stayed pretty much as they were. And yeah, a combination of just the power in close combat, the charge that this sorcerer got off on my lord, and just the number of psychic powers he was getting off. It was just too much for my Necrons to handle. As you can see, I'm down to just 2 warriors left and 1 Tomb Blade. Immortals are gone, the other warriors are gone. Over here the Stalker didn't die, but it didn't do anything. And down here I was able to wipe out the last of the Brimstone Horrors. But it was too little too late. He's now got 10 points with Kingslayer being scored by this sorcerer. And yeah, Abaddon wiping out the majority of the Tomb Blades. So that really is it. I think we fared better than we did in our last game, but still got absolutely whooped. Only 2 points. It's turn 3 and I'm down to, what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 models. So yeah, we're going to call that game there, because that is just a crushing victory. Thanks for a good game, mate. You played really well. Yes, it is, absolutely awesome. I'll have my vengeance though, don't you worry. All right, we'll see you guys in a bit. Bye.
So we called it there because although it was only turn 3, it was pretty clear who the winner was. Tom was ahead on points and had taken out the majority of my army. Most of his stuff, most notably Magnus, was still up, so there wasn't a great deal I could do. So fair play to Tom, you beat me fair and square, and you had a really, really solid list there. And although I lost pretty badly, I did feel like my Necrons did better than they did in the previous game. Maybe not in terms of points, but in terms of how they were playing. I kind of took his initial charge pretty well. And if I'd been able to take Magnus down, bear in mind he only ended up with about 3 wounds left. It could have been a very, very different game. But yeah, that goes to show one of the weaknesses in my army at the moment. I don't have much in the way of anti-tank and anti-big thing in general. I'm looking at possibly getting maybe a Annihilation Barge. No, not Annihilation Barge, I've got one of those. Doomsday Arc. Really powerful gun. I'm just not particularly relishing the idea of edge highlighting that entire model. It just looks really fiddly to do. As for heavy destroyers, the other possible option, they look solid, but when you actually run the numbers against the majority of targets, and I'm talking tank targets here, the regular destroyers actually do better because of the way rolls to wound work now and the number of shots they get. So probably not going to go down the route of heavy destroyers. And yeah, so it could have been a very different game if I'd taken Magnus down. My infantry held up pretty well. Now you will note I didn't use my Veil of Darkness there because there wasn't really a need to. He came to me, my guys were already in range, so I didn't really need to jump them around. Needed them to stay where they were and shoot. So yeah, it may have been a bit of a waste of a relic slot, but it would have had a purpose against most other armies. So yeah, on the whole, although I lost badly, not too unhappy with how the game went. And yeah, as you can see, Tom's got that list working really well now, and that wasn't even the really nasty version of that army. He has a version of that with Mortarion as well, and obviously he does have to play the detachments a bit differently, make sure that he's got all his keywords right with the new FAQ. But yeah, he has Mortarion as well, and does sometimes run Mortarion and Magnus together, which is just a terrifying prospect. But yeah, anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye.